Hey guys, Mr. Happy here and welcome to my guide to the Ninja job, the newest DPS job added to Final Fantasy XIV in patch 2.4. This guide will include stats, gearing up, cross-class skills, single target openers and rotation, AoE rotation, and a few tricks and tips to help you get started with the job. For ease of use, I have included an index in the top left corner of the video that will let you skip between these sections freely. Ninja is a melee DPS whose primary statistic is dexterity. It is a fast-paced job that gains its complexity through the use of very precise ninjutsu skills. While these skills are only available once every 20 seconds, they require quick yet proper button presses to perform without error. One mistake will likely cost you a lot of damage, and likely put a fluffy bunny on your head. Before level 50, focus all of your points into Dexterity, the ninja's main damage increasing stat. Once you are level 50, gearing becomes about reaching the proposed accuracy cap for each fight while maximizing your other stats. The stat priority of a ninja is as follows. 1 point of weapon damage is greater than 1 point of Dexterity, which is greater than 1 point of Determination, which is greater than 1 point of Crit, which is greater than 1 point of Skill Speed. While maintaining this order for raw damage, you'll need to be aware of individual accuracy caps for endgame content, which we'll touch on in a little bit. While I list that order for stats you'll want on your ninja, it's only stating which stats are better on a point-per-point basis. However, having enough of one stat may eventually outweigh the other. To figure this out, we must look at the job's individual stat weights. As it stands, these are the most recent stat weights for the ninja job as of January 3rd, 2015. Weapon damage is equivalent to 9.132 dexterity. Dexterity is a flat 1 since it's the baseline for all of our other stats. 1 point of determination is about 0.325 dexterity, 1 point of crit is equal to about 0.226 dexterity, and 1 point of skill speed is equal to about 215 dexterity. Now, while these weights are in constant flux due to their interactions with one another, this is a solid base to build upon. So each piece can be calculated out to an approximate dexterity value, and then compared against one another to find out what gear is best. Now, gearing up is a topic that has to be approached on an individual level. Most of the time, you'll hear talk of best in slot list, which is a proposed set of gear that has the highest statistical value based on the weights we listed earlier. However, these lists are usually created for the hardest fight that is currently available in the game, thus taking into account the accuracy required for said fight. Now, all fights prior to this usually require less accuracy, and thus different gear sets and foods are more optimal. So if you want this proposed best in slot list for the final fight in the game, check the description of the video. If not, there's a quick and easy way to approach gearing up. First, you'll want to educate yourself about the accuracy caps for each fight. Now, I've included a link to the accuracy caps for all of Coil's turns 1 through 13 in the description of the video. For most fights, you'll be interested in the flank column for ninjas, though for fights like turn 5, 6, 9, 11, and 12, you may want to consider reaching frontal accuracy if your strategy calls for you to ever be in front of any enemies at any point. Under the chart, there are also references for extreme primal accuracy relative to the Coil accuracy as well. Once you've figured out how much accuracy you need, head to ffxiv.aureala.com. Select your job at the top before selecting the categories and item level range above the gear list to suit your current goals and or needs. Then, select the BIS solver and enter the values listed earlier in the video, as well as the amount of total accuracy you are aiming for. You can check with or without foods. I recommend starting without foods, but just press solve and ta-da, your gear goals are all set. Keep in mind, if you have access to crafted gear with materia melds, you may want to consider using these while gearing up as well. With proper melds, these pieces can be extremely good and in rare cases even superior to certain higher item level gear. If you want to include crafted gear in your gear list, you'll need to handle the melds as best as you can within Aureala's website. Don't forget, food can also change depending on accuracy needs. Some common foods to use are black truffle risotto if you need no accuracy, steamed catfish if you need a lot of accuracy, and Apollo omelets if you're looking for some while getting other stats as well. Aureala can also help determine which foods are best for you, so be sure to use it as a strong resource. While I am assuming you have some basic understanding of the job's abilities, we will briefly discuss which cross-class abilities a ninja should use. I consider Invigorate, Internal Release, and Blood for Blood mandatory, leaving 2 additional spots open. I personally prefer taking Second Wind for a personal heal and Mantra for team utility. In some rare instances, you may want to consider Keen Flurry, but Featherfoot is pretty much useless unless you're tanking something for some reason. Haymaker is a global cooldown that could be better spent elsewhere, and Feint is pretty much the same as Haymaker. And finally, we come to the ninja's single target rotation. While the rotation itself is quite simple, there are little things that can severely throw it off, so we're going to break it down into quite a few categories. Keep in mind that there are several slight variations to the ninja rotation as well. So to keep this video timely, slight modifications will be available in a Google document in the description of the video. First, we'll touch on your opener without a warrior in your party. This opener is meant to be used if you don't have a party member keeping 100% uptime on the Storm's Eye or Dancing Edge debuff, and you must apply it yourself through Dancing Edge. The rotation is as you'll see on your screen right now. You want to precast Huton 15 seconds before the pull if possible. This works better in organized endgame content, but is generally hard to do in Duty Finder type content. After you've done that, you'll basically want to follow the rest of the combo you see on your screen right now. This allows you to get both dots up fully buffed, as well as all of your off the global cooldown abilities and an Aeolian Edge, all within Trick Attack's 10-second window. Here is what it looks like when executed properly. When you do have a warrior in your party opening with Storm's Eye, this opener changes drastically. Where you were looking to get Dancing Edge up immediately before, you instead look to apply your dots as quick as possible. For this rotation, I recommend the following. So once again, you'll want to precast Huton before going into your rotation, and once you've done that, this will be the rotation that you try to follow, where you focus on getting Shadow Fang and Mutilate up before going into your Aeolian Edge combos. Now this rotation allows you to get Shadow Fang up at the start with Blood for Blood and Internal Release, which gets it ticking doing alright damage, and then you reapply it with Blood for Blood plus Internal Release plus a Dex Potion plus your Trick Attack debuff when it has about 4 seconds remaining. So you'll clip it by 1 tick, maybe 2, but the increased damage should be overall better for you. It also ensures Mutilate is at least applied with Blood for Blood plus Internal Release plus your Potion. Trying to line it up with Trick Attack was just more trouble than it was worth. Now the last modification I can make to either of these rotations involves lag. While this rotation is crisp and clean in low lag instances, it's common to have at least a little bit of lag. Now if you do get any lag, spread out your buffs and off the global cooldown abilities. Use Blood for Blood before even opening with Spinning Edge, and don't try to use Mug and Jugulate in the same global cooldown. So right now I'm going to show you guys both of the modified versions for lag. Don't worry, if you need it, it will be in the description of the video in the document. After you perform your opener listed above, there are a few simple rules you'll want to follow to maintain your high DPS. First, ensure Dancing Edge is always on the enemy if there's no warrior for Storm's Eye. Second, be sure to use your Shadow Fang combo if Shadow Fang is between 4 or 5 seconds left at the start of your next combo. Then, reapply Mutilate just before or after it falls off. If it has under 4 seconds left when you finish your prior combo, reapply it then. Then, if both Shadow Fang and Mutilate have the same remaining time on their debuffs, prioritize Shadow Fang over Mutilate. It's better to prevent Shadow Fang from falling off than Mutilate. Then you'll want to line up Internal Release and Blood for Blood with your damage over time abilities and your other high damage abilities as best as possible, but don't hold on to them for too long without using them. Next one's a big one. Be sure to use Mug and Jugulate every chance you get unless you need their utility for something else, for example Jugulate's silence and or stun. And finally, don't forget, when an enemy is under 20% HP, use Assassinate whenever it's available, but be sure not to use it just before you'll need to dodge an attack, since it does come with an animation lock. When it comes to using your ninjutsu for single target DPS, your priorities are Huton before Suiton before Raiton. Basically, you'll want to use Huton if your skill speed buff is about to wear off. If your skill speed buff is fine and trick attack is available, you'll want to use Suiton. And then if both of those situations aren't applicable and you're just looking to fill in a random ninjutsu, just use Raiton if you have nothing else to do. Now, like most DPS jobs in the game, Ninja's AoE rotation is pretty simple. Unfortunately, unless they make use of all of their cooldowns, Ninja's AoE rotation isn't very potent. So again, I'll be breaking this up into different situations. In large AoE situations, you'll usually want to blow all of your cooldowns to ensure the enemies die fast enough. This usually refers to big pulls to do speedruns in dungeons. For this kind of rotation, I recommend precasting Huton as your tank is gathering up all of the enemies. Then, once they're all gathered, Death Blossom, then Blood for Blood and Internal Release, Death Blossom again, Katan, Death Blossom, Kasatsu, Death Blossom, Doton. Continue spamming Death Blossom, and if the party's AoE DPS is good, you'll probably kill everything just as your next ninjutsu is coming off cooldown. If it does come off cooldown and the enemies still have a sliver of HP left, you'll probably just want to hit them with one more Katan to finish them off. In smaller AoE situations, the use of cooldowns is generally up to the user. It's common to save cooldowns for the next boss if you'll make it to them before those cooldowns are available. Most often you'll end up simply spamming Death Blossom and lay down a Doton. If the enemies will die before your next ninjutsu cast instead, use Katan. For more information and modifications to these rotations, be sure to check out that document I keep mentioning. While that's it for ninja damage rotations, there are other ways to improve your overall game as a ninja. So here are some additional tips for newer ninjas out there. First, be sure to use Shukichi whenever you need to close the gap between you and an enemy. It helps ensure that you are able to get back into the action quicker. It can also be used at the start of a fight to help close the initial gap between you and the boss. Next, and this is a big one, go to your fellow physical DPS to help improve their TP management. Don't be stingy with it. Do it as soon as possible in a fight, so it'll be available again between the second and third Invigorate. In dungeons, if you have no fellow physical DPS, goad the tank. If you do have a fellow physical DPS who is AoEing, goad them instead. The next one, hide is pretty much useless on endgame bosses currently, as they reveal you as soon as they are pulled, so don't bother with it. Number 4, perfect dodge can be used to avoid physical AoEs for better survival, or more importantly, to allow you to keep DPSing by making it so you don't need to move away from the target. Remember, physical damage AoEs only. 5 is that there aren't really any good macros for ninja players. I highly recommend you never macro your main combo abilities, and as a ninja, I especially recommend that you never macro your mudras to make ninjutsus. One useful macro you may like is the mouse over goad macro, which allows you to goad an ally just by mousing over their name in the party list. Obviously this only works for mouse and keyboard players, but that macro is included in the document with the video. And finally, here are a few general tips for ninjutsu usage overall. First of all, don't use Doton on single targets unless it's a last resort due to messing up. It is inferior to every other single target ninjutsu other than Hyoton. It is a 3-part ninjutsu, which causes it to flow into the global cooldown more and eat up more time than both Raiton and Fuma Shuriken. And its potency is inferior to Raiton by default, and due to taking longer to perform, will end up being inferior to Fuma Shuriken as well. Now, while it's less effective on single targets, both Doton and Katan are more effective than Raiton if there are at least 2 targets available, though Doton requires the target remain alive for 3/4 of its duration. This means that Doton is only better than Katan in AoE situations if the enemies will remain in Doton's effect for at least 18 seconds. If enemies will die before this, Katan will do equal or higher damage. Also keep in mind that all ninjutsus other than Fuma Shuriken are affected by Foe's Requiem. Fuma Shuriken is instead affected by physical debuffs such as Dancing Edge. This next one's a biggie. If you're lagging really bad, it can sometimes be okay to use Fuma Shuriken instead of Raiton, but only if you're lagging, if the enemy has the slashing debuff on them, and you don't have any of your buffs available and Foe's Requiem is not up. It takes a lot of practice to figure out weaving in Fuma Shurikens in place of Raitons at the right moment. Also, any bosses that have magical immunities, Fuma Shuriken will be better in this case also, since it is a physical ninjutsu. And finally, just be sure to practice your ninjutsus a lot. With anything, it's going to take a lot of practice to get this down. But once you've mastered your ninjutsu, it is going to make your rotation go a lot smoother. So make that a priority on yourself. Try to avoid the bunny. And that's it for my ninja guide for patch 2.4. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them in the comment section below the video. And be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share for all the latest Final Fantasy XIV information, news, guides, everything. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video. And until next time, take care.